Welcome back to .NET Rocks. I'm Carl Franklin.
And I'm Richard Campbell.
And we're here at Sydney, NBC Sydney, to be exact, Sydney, Australia, in the last of the second day.
Yep.
Had
a good run of shows. Had a lot of fun doing them.
And, we work in between shows. So it's like, we're either up in our room or in the speaker's lounge. And
a little run down to the floor.
Yeah, but it's great. I love this show.
It's a good job, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a good job.
And a shout out to Adam Kogan and the people at SSW for putting this little stage together. And they're doing their own things here in a live stream. And we may not have mentioned it in previous shows, but this is actually streaming live as we're recording this. And then we go back and edit our recording afterwards. But so hi out there. Thanks, SSW, for letting us do this. How have you been since the last time I saw you?
A couple hours, something like that. I think we had a cup of tea together,
know,
the usual.
Nothing special happening?
I'm working on next shows too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of reality for us. It's the fall conference season, so there's a bunch of shows, one right after the next.
Yep.
But I'm not complaining.
No rest for the wicked.
Better than a real job.
And speaking of better, let's do Better Know Framework.
Awesome.
Roll the music.
All right, buddy, what do you got?
Well, I went looking for stuff, as I kind of do when I run out of ideas, and I found this pretty cool site called hey.space.
Good domain name.
Hey Space.
Hey Space.
It's been described as if Slack and Trello got married and had a baby.
So project management and messaging?
Yeah, it's kind of like you get the groups and the chat and all that stuff, but then you get a board with cards and everything, and then you can interact with them and the chat at the same time. It's kind of neat.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah, it's kind of simple, but sometimes those tools are, really useful.
Yeah, I've always liked about Trello and Slack for that matter as well, too. It's like the basic concept's not that complicated. What you do with it is where the depth comes from.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, all right. Worth taking a look at. Let's
Hey
go.
Space.
Hey Space. Know it, learn it, love it. Huh?
Who's talking to us today, Richard?
Grabbed a comment off of show 1520, which we did back in February of this year, 2018, where we talked to Cameron Burge and Tarek Daoud about security for nonprofits. And, I think one of the essence of that show was just because you're a not-for-profit or a 501c3 or charity or anything like that, doesn't mean you aren't responsible for data security just as much, if not more so.
Yeah, right.
The serious responsibilities. I had a few good comments on that show. I wanted to read this one here from Joshua Hillerup, who said, I know a company whose network was hit by ransomware, because we talked about that, through their HR department opening what they thought was a resume. Right. Word doc.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really, I think we need a new culture of software security, that it would make it so that the default for a regular account runs whitelisted software.
Yeah.
This is a conversation I've recently had on Run As Radio about this idea that, normally we do blacklisting where anything's allowed on the machine, but then we, use malware to remove the stuff we don't like. And whitelist says, here's a list of what can run on the machine. That's it.
Right.
So the idea that you operate in different account levels, that your regular account mode would be whitelist only. So you basically can't introduce any new software to the equation, as opposed to then you have to have an elevated privilege to do anything else.
Right.
No ability to execute any other sort of code without having explicitly approved by the network administrator. However, that won't work with a lot of legacy and even not so legacy software out there, let alone coming up with a way to still have developers be able to develop software. Now, this is the part where I disagree with Joshua, because there is a pattern for managing all of that you can mark up legacy software, put it in a whitelist, go through tools like AppLocker to actually protect that. And same thing, there's a reason we have signed code policies where if you're building applications internally, if you're using the certificates that way, you can, through group policy, and I'm, put my IT hat on here, say, hey, if you see this cert, sign with that code, let it run.
Yeah.
So there are solutions to all that. It's just not trivial.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of steps and thoughts that have to go into it. And I'm sure our guest will have more to say on that. So Joshua, thank you so much for your comment. A copy of Music to Code By is on its way to you. And if you'd like a copy of Music to Code By, write a comment on the website at .netrocks.com or via any of our social media, because we publish every show to Facebook and Google+. And if you comment there and we read it on the show, we'll send you a copy of Music to Code By.
And definitely follow us on Twitter. I'm at Carl Franklin. He's at Rich Campbell. Send us a tweet. We read them under least privilege. Speaking of that, before we get started here, did you see that Newegg got hacked?
Yeah.
Somebody injected 12 lines of JavaScript into their checkout process. And
no.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. I did see that Troy, who's here, was mentioning, this looks like it's real. So,
yeah, it just never ends.
So one breach after the next.
Well, anyway, we'll talk to Nina about that, I'm sure. And speaking of Nina, let me introduce her. Nina Juliadotter was a software developer who became tired of reading about data breaches caused by insecure source code and decided to do something about it. Currently, she's a principal application security consultant where she helps software developers write secure applications that keep data safe. Welcome to .NET Rocks, Nina.
Thanks so much.
Did you hear about this Newegg thing?
I've been busy working on my presentation for tomorrow, so no, I missed that, but I'm sure I'll catch up tonight on that news. Yeah.
It's almost like there's a new one every day.
Oh, at least once a day. Yeah, easy. Yeah.
I'm interested to see, and not to make any presumptions on your name or your accent.
Sure.
That I suspect you spent a fair bit of your life living under the conditions of the GDPR. When one of these breaches finally happens in Europe, I'm interested to see that law enacted.
Oh, yeah, aren't we all? Yeah, we're all panicking, aren't we?
Well, certainly there's the panic of trying to be compliant.
Yeah.
And you're not really going to know you're compliant until some legal discourse takes place. But part of the GDPR that excited me the most was this whole requirement around disclosures of breaches and behavior around that.
That's good.
We're finally putting some financial consequence on businesses who treat consumer data in irresponsibility.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah,
that's the way to go. Oh, yeah, that's the way to go. No, it has to start there. Mm-hmm. They have to feel the pain. Yeah, otherwise they're not going to try to do anything, are they? Yeah.
Well, and that's what's been crazy to me with all of the breaches that have gone on, is that in so many cases, you're just seeing virtually no financial consequence to the business at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at the Target breach a year or two ago.
Oh, right.
Yeah, millions and millions of customers lost their personally identifiable data. And yeah, okay, the share price went down a little bit and they might have had to pay a fine, but look at Target today, there's no problem.
Yeah.
That was
business
like an
as usual.
IoT hack or something, wasn't it? Like
through the HVAC system?
HVAC system?
Yeah, that was quite a interesting one, that one, yeah. So it shows that where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Yeah.
No system is secure, and if an adversary is motivated enough, they will find a way. Yeah.
And in some ways, that scenario reminds me of your talk, because you're not necessarily talking about code that developers write, but the code that developers depend upon.
That's right, because, luckily in the last few years, there's been a lot more attention given to security in the code that we write. Mm-hmm. We have the OWASP Top 10, where developers learn that, you must, do input validation to avoid SQL injection and cross-site scripting.
Right.
However, OWASP Top 10 number 9 is all about using components with known vulnerabilities, and it's something we perhaps don't think so much about. Mm-hmm. If you look at a web application in production today, about 90% of the deployed code is actually components that you did not write.
Right.
Yeah. So you write maybe, 10%. That's your custom business requirements. The rest, you rely on components, usually open source components, for your database connectivity, for, your parsing, your web frameworks and all that.
Do you think it's a good idea to download those components and use them locally rather than link to them across the internet? I remember the JavaScript dependency problem where people were linking to jQuery, I think, on a CDN rather than downloading the right version and having that on their servers. And somebody broke JavaScript, essentially, and all hell broke loose.
Number one, be aware of which components you're using and which version, and control that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because that would also be, when Microsoft did dependency on jQuery in 2010 with the Studio 2010, they started hosting their own version of jQuery. Not that it was customized in any way, but it's like they wanted to be able to tell their customers, which turns out was us, you can use it from a CDN, but use it from our CDN.
Yeah.
And we're responsible for making sure that that is really the copy of jQuery that you think it is. This is an interesting set of exploits and concerns around this. I have noticed a humanitarian toolbox now. In the past few months, GitHub has started giving you routine reports on the dependencies that are in the applications you've checked into GitHub and saying, hey, there's a vulnerability in this version of this library.
Yeah, and that's wonderful, isn't it?
It's
to bring up that awareness to the developers, yeah.
It's just another email that drops in my box that scares the snot out of me on a regular basis.
Yeah, well, okay. I'm sorry to hear that. Perhaps you should action it. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, what scares you, Nina?
What scares me?
Yeah, what scares you the most? What keeps you up at night?
It's probably the lack of awareness. Because I was a software developer for many years myself and never ever paid attention to security. I just, did that input statement to use whatever component I needed for whatever. And yeah, it worked. Sweet. Let's put it in production. Off we go. And it works, right? So 5, 10, 15 years later, guess what? It's still there.
Right.
Because why upgrade it? It ain't broken. Don't fix it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And this worries me. That we leave old legacy components and don't continuously update, because guess what? That component, sooner or later, someone will find a vulnerability in there.
Right.
They will disclose it to the world. They might publish an exploit, and boom. This is what happened in Equifax breach, for example.
Right.
Right. So there's a Java web framework called Struts.
Mm-hmm.
It's very commonly used, perhaps not in new applications today, but it's been around since the early 2000s. So when web apps first started being a big thing, a lot of people used Struts. Right. Turns out that someone found a very bad vulnerability in the way that, they handle the content type header in the exception handling of that when you do a
super
file
subtle, huh?
upload, right? And someone was bored enough to figure out that this is a problem. And if you do a particular crazy string into this application, you can get what we call remote code execution, which is the worst possible. So you're executing commands on the operating system.
Right.
Mm.
So it turns out that Equifax was using this. Equifax is an American credit reporting agency. You might have heard of it. Yes.
Yeah.
That holds the data of what I understand is most Americans, or an awful lot of them anyway, in terms of name, address, social security number, driver's license number, even copies of passports and driver's license.
Yeah. But what's egregious about Equifax is virtually no consumer puts their data into Equifax.
Right.
They give their data to a bank for somebody they're applying a loan to.
That's right.
And they're sending it to Equifax as part of a validation process.
That's right. What their credit rating is, right? So Equifax had all this data. They were using Struts. They didn't pay attention to which version of Struts they were using.
Mm-hmm. They hadn't updated it.
No. Right. So in March 2017, it was disclosed that there's a vulnerability. Mm-hmm. Public exploit was available. Equifax did absolutely nothing.
Right. They probably weren't even aware of it. Didn't even see it.
They wouldn't have a clue, right? And then I think it was in May. This is like after the facts were, sort of done the forensic analysis. It turns out in May 2017, they were breached. The adversaries stayed in their system for about 3 months and exfiltrated everything they wanted. Wow. And then eventually, they figured out what was going on. And the consequence,
But the exfiltration was completed. Yeah. Like the hack had been completely successful.
Yeah.
They had spent months in their system copying data at a relatively low profile.
Yep.
And literally the only thing that Equifax ultimately noticed is like the door was left open.
Yeah. Basically,
That's all.
And the consequences of this is huge. Like, the CEO had to go to the US Congress and apologize. Mm-hmm. And this is...
And that didn't even help, right?
Yeah, no, it didn't even help. Of course it didn't help. And the market price just plummeted, and they lost, I don't know how much money, enormous amounts of money. The class action lawsuits were like,
And they're still in business.
Yeah, they're still in business. But it's just, for me, it's amazing to think that this was all caused by a vulnerability in an open source component. That a developer,
was years and years old.
Yes, that the developer chose to put in there. And how would the CEO know? But
Yeah. We're presuming there was no vulnerability when they put it in initially.
Yeah,
well,
probably
of course,
not,
actually,
right?
it was there. It was just unknown.
Right,
It had been running successfully for years and years and years.
Absolutely.
It was a well-known tool.
Yeah.
Well, you remember there was the vulnerability in OpenSSH. You talk about something that everybody depended on.
Oh, yes. So,
and it was an error in coding.
Yeah.
But it had been there for decades before it got found.
Are there any statistics or numbers that can tell us the risk of getting the latest versions versus the risk of keeping the older versions? Because sometimes you'll update your dependencies or one of your dependencies, and that will have a vulnerability in it. But I guess the chances are slimmer that a newer version will have a vulnerability, but it's still quite possible. Yeah. So I guess that testing is important. Because
at least the known vulnerabilities would have been patched in the later versions.
Right.
But something that was frustrating with the Struts incident, because of course Equifax was only one of the victims of this.
But it had been identified. There was a fix for it.
Yeah.
Before their exploit had taken place.
No, absolutely. Because that's how you find out that there is a known vulnerability.
Right.
You keep track. Oh, there's a patch. What's going on here? What did they patch? Ooh, they patched that. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
To come to your point, turns out that the version 1 of Struts was not vulnerable to that particular exploit, whereas version 2 was, But still, I'm not saying don't up, no, because, in theory, if you keep on the latest, at least you'll have the latest patches.
Right, at least you'll be ahead of the game.
Yeah. And the trick here, in my opinion, is to stay updated all the time.
Right.
Yeah, because if you do major updates, that increases the risk of breaking something. Yeah.
Are there services that will tell you when new versions of your dependencies come out just so that you can be notified, or is it something that you just have to set up yourself?
No, absolutely. Yeah. There are services, because it's a known problem for anyone who uses components, which is anyone who develops applications. So We call this process the software composition analysis,
Mhm.
and there are many automated tools that can help you with this. Conceptually, it's very simple. You have an automated tool that regularly or so that makes an inventory of all your components to see what are you using and which version.
Mhm.
It also regularly does an inventory of the latest version of those components.
Right.
Yeah.
And it also looks for, in the databases available, for the known vulnerabilities of
Yeah.
those components. Basically does a mapping and goes, here you go, this is your status at the moment.
Right. And this
Yeah.
is something that GitHub has started doing, essentially.
Yes, essentially. I haven't looked in detail for that.
The emails I've looked at were not as sophisticated as what you just described.
Sure,
but it's
yeah,
along
no.
those lines of just,
Yeah.
hey,
To
if,
start.
if you
Yeah.
keep your source in GitHub, one of the services you get from that is this regular notification of you take a dependency on this library and it has a known vulnerability.
Yeah.
You know, also if you're using NuGet in Visual Studio, you can see what updates are available.
Mhm. But I do like the idea of getting an email on a routine basis.
Yeah.
Probably per app that says, this
Yeah.
is the manifest. These are the current versions. You need to be concerned about these things.
Yeah. And for, depending on which tool you use, like you may implement a tool in your organization for your application, such as there's Black Duck, there's White Source, there's Snook, there's a whole range of vendors who offer these products. And then you can customize it to put it into your build pipeline and your processes the way you work.
Right.
So if a Jira ticket is what you need to fix something or to update something,
Generate the Jira ticket directly.
it will generate a Jira ticket and put it in your queue.
Nice.
And voila, you know?
So actually make it part of the CI/CD
Oh,
pipeline.
yeah, absolutely. That's
So
what
that
you have to do, yeah.
Anytime you compile that app, it's immediately poking you on,
Yeah,
hey, this has got a vulnerability.
exactly. So you can choose where in your software development lifecycle you would like to enter these tools as well. You can start already in the IDE, as you mentioned, in which case you get a heads up, you know, which is great because then you go, oh, okay, yeah, either I should update or I'm entering a new library and, actually, it turns out this one is very vulnerable. I should use another one.
Right.
Or you can hook it up to your package manager, to your build system like Jenkins or TFS or whatever you're using. If you have a binary repo, you can plug in a little hook there. Whenever you add a new binary in there, it will tell you if it's vulnerable or not. Or you can even poke at your production apps. So it's up to you. Whatever suits you. So there's no real excuse to not do it, in my opinion.
There's not one right way to
Yeah.
go about this. You have a bunch of choices, but it's
Absolutely.
making that security considering part of the process of building software.
Exactly. So in your sprint or whatever methodology you use, you should always, in my opinion, have this as a story or a task to, have a look at your dependencies or your components, see how they are.
Right.
Are we vulnerable? And make a decision as to if you want to upgrade or not.
Then let's pause just for this moment for a very important message. Hi, this is Richard. The Dev Intersection Fall Show this year will be December 3rd to 6th in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand Hotel. The lineup is awesome. Scott Guthrie, Scott Hanselman, Scott Hunter, yes, all the Scotts. But also a ton of great industry speakers for some insight on what's coming up in the world of .NET. You know, Core 3 is bringing client technology like WinForms and WPF into play. Could it be time to migrate your existing desktop apps to this new technology? Come learn more at Dev Intersection, December 3rd to 6th in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand. Go to devintersection.com to register and use the code .NETROCKS to get a discount. And we're back. It's Richard Campbell and Carl Franklin here at NDC Sydney. It's .NET Rocks. And we're speaking to Nina Juliadotter about the vulnerabilities that exist in code that we depend on but not necessarily own. Is there responsibility for those component creators? I mean, obviously, I want to own that as well. And they're probably doing the low-level stuff of recognizing where the problems are and fixing it in theirs. In the end, it's not me trying to fix their code, but rather just getting their notices and getting onto the new versions that have the fixes.
Depends on your viewpoint, really. I would say, the more mature open source organizations like Apache or Spring Source, obviously they have a reputation to protect.
Yeah.
So it's in their interest to fix it. But if I, as a developer, fancy using, the library developed by Bob 4 years ago and he never looked at it again.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, good luck, exactly. I shouldn't really blame Bob, in my opinion.
And ultimately, you as the app in the field are holding the liability anyway.
Yeah.
I can't think of a single case where someone like a Target might go after that HVAC vendor for not making sufficiently secure software.
Is it worth, or are there ways to do tests against components for vulnerabilities before you put them into your software?
Absolutely. You can look for known vulnerabilities. That's using this process that we just talked about.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you can also look for unknown vulnerabilities.
Well, yeah,
that
that's
tickles
what
your fancy. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking about.
number of ways you can use static analysis tools, which is something that I use as in my role in application security. When I look at the custom written source code, we use something called static analysis tools, which basically, reads through the source code and, does fancy stuff and figures out different pathways of how you can get through and if there is sufficient with validation or if there are any vulnerabilities.
Yeah, so literally parsing your source code to look for potential vulnerabilities.
Yes, exactly. It creates an AppSec syntax tree and then does the control flow to have a look through. Yeah. So, you could absolutely do that. And that happens. Yeah. If you want to be sure that
also could be part of your CI/CD pipeline too.
Yeah, that's if you have, the source code of the library. You could also do dynamic analysis, which is when it is deployed and you try your normal pen testing techniques.
Right.
To see if you can break in. Yeah.
Well, and Paula Janowiski is one of our favorite people. We've known her for years and years. She comes up run as mostly, but you'd never let that lady near your machine.
Yeah.
Well, the story, Paula's story is great. She's this, kind of very unintimidating, petite, blonde girl from Poland, and she went in for a job interview, and she said...
she'd been hired to do the pen testing.
Yeah. Well,
she just didn't tell the front desk that.
And she said, well, your appointment is in a half an hour. Why don't you have a seat? And she says, can I have the Wi-Fi password so I can check my email, please? Sure, no problem. So then she sits down and she got into her interview. And so what makes you think you're qualified for the job? And she says, well, here are all your databases.
Yeah, I'm in your network.
Here's your admin account. And yeah, lovely. Social engineering. That's a good way to get a job in security.
True.
In some ways, I would think we're in good shape if the only exploits you can get into a network are social engineering exploits.
Yeah.
Because straight software vulnerabilities is one thing where we can literally be blindly sweeping for that vulnerability as opposed to the effort it takes to find someone to get you in the door.
Yeah. Yeah, I talk to colleagues that work at other IT departments or organizations, and the number of times when they have been audited and they have found that the general security of the applications is pretty good. They can't really break in. However, you can walk straight in through the front door and into the server room, no problem.
Right.
Because people are very helpful. Oh, yes, I'll hold the door.
Let me hold that door for you.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Well, and passwords stuck to Post-it notes on the sides of displays and on undersides of keyboards, like all of those sorts of classics.
Yeah.
When I think about real social engineering pieces, it's the making phone calls and convincing people to tell you things they shouldn't tell you.
Yeah, like Kevin Mitnick back in the day. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and things are getting more and more sophisticated these days where the black hats are now getting names of the right people inside of organizations and face spoofing their emails and it's getting more challenging on all of those levels.
Automated tools to just harvest all the data publicly available about people.
An organization.
Yeah. And then it's too easy to write a targeted email and get them to click that link.
Yeah. But again, I don't think that's in scope for what we're talking about here.
True. It's just interesting.
Well, it certainly is. And it's just, what's interesting is that for many, many years, the exploit side was almost academic, right? We talked about the days of the slammer virus and so forth, where they had no payloads. Yeah. They were just propagators.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it, university hijinks, but it wasn't far above that. Today's black hats are making money.
Oh, yeah.
Ransomware is a business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're serious.
Yeah.
And they are stealing money.
Yeah.
Effectively.
Absolutely, yeah. And selling data,
Yeah.
Data about us as people has high value.
Mm-hmm. Well, it turns out we distribute most of that on Facebook anyway, so.
Yeah, well.
I don't know how high value it actually is to some folks.
No.
I can think of a lot of companies who you could classify as stealing money.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in security. Why am I still paying $200 for somebody to tell my website visitors that I actually have a certified...
Oh, the SSL cert?
Oh, my God. What a racket that is.
Oh, no.
I wish I could get into that business. Go to my website, give me your money, and I'll say that you're okay. Come on.
I think Troy's working on a piece about how EV is kind of dead.
Just thinking you should talk to Scott Hellman, Troy Hunt about that,
Yeah, they're definitely, going through the extended validation stuff is questionable now.
Yeah.
It was questionable back then.
I just find certs too hard to use, right?
They are.
We just went through this battle.
They're ridiculously hard to use.
Yeah, they are. There's so many different formats, and how do you install them in different systems? Bit of a nightmare,
No good answer. And yet we want signed code.
Of course,
There's really no strategy around that for open source projects. That we could come up with some kind of standard that at least you knew you were running what you thought you were running.
Yeah, I don't know. Slightly outside of my expertise. But that would be nice, wouldn't it?
No easy answers to any of that.
Yeah.
If it was easy, we'd be doing it, I guess.
If it was easy, you could buy it at 7-Eleven.
We mostly talked about open source components here. Do you deal with organizations where they're dealing with closed source libraries that they're depending upon? I mean, it's getting kind of archaic now, isn't it?
Yeah, closed source. Yeah, you don't see a lot of that these days, but I don't know. The work I've been doing is mainly focused on open source components, but of course there's a lot of closed source components too that have known vulnerabilities. Microsoft has a large number of them, as we all know.
Yeah, yes. They still do. The standard framework is a closed source product still.
Yeah.
There happens to be an open source version of it, but they're not the same.
No. You don't really trust one over the other because of open source or closed source. I mean, you can make an argument in both directions about the vulnerabilities.
That's an epic discussion that we can have for weeks, I think. Yeah. Is closed source or open source more secure? Yeah.
Should we just throw something out there to get people mad? Take a stand on one?
Is it a pessimistic versus optimistic view? If I have the source code available, there's more good guys than bad guys who are more likely to find and fix vulnerabilities.
That's the argument for open source, yeah, right.
And the pessimistic view is, don't show them your code. Are you crazy?
They're going to find all the vulnerabilities.
It comes down to this age-old question. My wife and I are constantly battling this. Are people inherently good or are they inherently evil? I mean, this is kind of the question, the philosophical question we're rubbing up against here.
Yeah.
Right? Do you trust humanity with your software?
I still believe that we're more good than bad, and I still believe open source is the way to go.
I agree, and I think that people will, given a choice, do the right thing. But any human who is struggling for survival, that's typically when they fall into nefarious practices. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's important as developers that we're not naive,
right?
As well, of course you should use open source components because what's the alternative? You're going to reinvent the wheel on how to do that database connection or that JSON parsing or whatever it is.
Well, and on the presumption that your implementation will be more reliable and more secure than the existing
Exactly. That's the same argument as on-prem versus cloud. Like, organizations like, whoa, we're not going to the cloud. It's scary. That's dangerous. And I'm thinking, in a lot of cases, the cloud providers have really thought about security in a way that you never have on-prem.
Driving to work is dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
The public cloud providers have full-time staffs who specialize in this.
Exactly.
If you're big enough to do that, then maybe you should be running your own cloud.
Yeah, exactly.
Most of us are not.
Yeah. And so what I was getting to with components is use them, but don't be naive. Always assume that there's a problem with them. You need to treat them as such. You need to, use standard checks. Are there known vulnerabilities? And how are you using them?
So it is a commitment if you're going to use this component to how are we going to keep it updated? How do we get aware of the vulnerabilities there?
Yeah.
And in theory, before we even start using it, do they have a mechanism to make sure that they're catching their vulnerabilities and feed them out to the consumers of their component?
Yeah, and also make a judgment call on the operational security of it. Like, was it developed by, a reputable organization that have full-time staff that, make patches? Or was it done by Bob 4 years ago and never looked at again?
And the fact that it might be in the Apache Foundation or the .NET Foundation thing is another source of credibility. So I think there is an aspect here of assessing the security merits of a component before you consume it.
Yeah.
And also, just because it passes all the tests, all the unit tests, doesn't mean that it doesn't have vulnerabilities.
No.
They're only as good as the tests you can come up with.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, Richard, guess what time it is now?
It must be that happy time again.
Yeah, it's time for me to ask you a question, Richard.
Okay.
What's the best way to stop memory leaks in old software?
Turn it off.
Nope.
No.
Depends.
Well, that's one kind of leak anyway.
So as we get older, our humor changes, It's actually time to give away a $200 Amazon gift card, compliments of Progress Telerik, to one lucky member of the .NET Rocks fan club. But first, let me tell you about the most comprehensive developer toolkit for building modern apps on the market today. Telerik DevCraft. With more than 1,100 Telerik.NET and Kendo UI JavaScript components and controls, you can easily build modern, high-performant web, mobile, and desktop apps, as well as chatbots. The toolset also includes reporting solutions, automated testing, and productivity tools, and comes with a range of support options. New this year is a free online training program for all license holders. With this, alongside thousands of demos with source code, comprehensive docs, and a full assortment of Visual Studio templates, you'll be up and running with the Progress, Telerik, and Kendo UI tools in no time. Download a free 30-day trial today at telerik.com/download.
All right, buddy. Who's our winner?
Today's winner, Richard, is Stefan Olsen.
Congratulations, Stefan.
And Stefan just won a $200 Amazon gift card compliments of Progress Telerik just for being a member of the .NET Rocks fan club. And if you'd like to be a member, go to .NETRocks.com, click on the big Get Free Stuff button, answer a few questions, and join the fan club. We have thousands of members all over the world. In every show, we like to give away stuff from our sponsors. And every December, we give away a $5,000 technology shopping spree to one lucky member of the fan club. But you got to sign up to win. And we also like to ask our guests, Nina, if you had $5,000 to spend on any kind of technology today, what would you buy?
I have been thinking a lot about that,
We didn't mean to put that much pressure on you.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Yeah. See, I have sort of the opposite problem. I have 3 children, and we have stuff everywhere.
Yeah. Right.
So if I was to spend 5,000...
So it's not going to be drums. That's what you're saying.
I got it. Hire a dumpster.
Yes!
Get rid of stuff.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, done.
Okay, now
Easy. Less is more.
$4,500 left.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
you're going to
Power.
replace all
A
that
dumpster
junk
every year for the next 10 years.
Yes, even better. Far out. You don't need me here. This is
Have
awesome.
it delivered by drones.
Yes. Yes. I love it.
Between the complexities of the very family structure of my life, my daughters ended up with 4 grandmothers.
Yeah.
And that's
right.
a lot of loot at Christmas.
Yes. Oh, my goodness.
And
Yes.
it finally had to become part of it's just the stuffies, right? Just the stuffed toys
Yes.
and stuff. That before Christmas,
Yeah.
you literally had to round up all these stuffed toys and you put them in a bag.
Yeah.
And we'd leave them for the year in case you missed any of them.
Yeah.
But we'd take the last year's bag that you didn't open and
Oh.
go donate them out.
Mm.
Because otherwise, you can't walk into the room. You're up to your neck in stuffed toys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, Amazon has got it all wrong. Like, they're delivering by drone, but no, they need to
haul
take
away.
away by drone.
You were onto
Yeah.
something.
Yes,
Franklin.
totally.
You were onto
Yeah.
something.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I'd buy that.
Maybe that's the
Okay.
policy. For every box you drop off, you must
Yeah.
take one away.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
We're going to go with consumer neutral processes.
How about
Yes.
a cardboard box shredder?
Yes.
That'd be a good one.
I love it.
You can leave the stuffies right in there. Just
Nice.
stuff them right in
Put
there.
'em back
Shred
too.
it.
So I want to recap a little because I'm excited about this. I'm definitely feeling like I'm wearing my info hat
Yeah,
right
lovely.
now.
That's the
Of-
way.
Got a lot of hats.
Keep it on.
I do.
Yeah.
But it's made of tinfoil, oddly enough.
That's good. You should be paranoid. Always be paranoid.
Just because you're not paranoid doesn't mean they aren't out to get you.
Uh-huh.
But I do like this. As we adopt components as developers, that there needs to be a conversation about what is the security status of this? What's the vulnerability? What does the workflow of vulnerabilities look like? And the consideration for the cost that represents, that it should be incorporated, I think, in a CI/CD pipeline, just because that's a great place to put it, that it's part of the checks and so forth. So there's a reasonable set of requirements to deciding on a component.
Absolutely. Because guess what? In terms of cost efficiency, how much do you think it costs to fix that problem in production when you find it?
Yes.
Enormous amounts. How much do you think it costs to just not use that library or framework to start with? Nothing. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you brought that library in for a reason. It does something useful that you're now going to have to write the code for. So there is an assignment to that. Every bit of code that we write also represents security risks and maintenance and everything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I appreciate this idea that we tend to want to use other people's code to save ourselves some writing time, but it doesn't come for free.
No.
Open source is freedom, not free. Right? And it's more relevantly is this, that there is a set of obligations you're going to have to take on.
Absolutely, yeah. And we just need to bring that awareness to developers that when they're doing that input statement or their usage or require or whatever they do, it comes with the responsibility.
It's not an outrageous thing. This shouldn't be show-stopping.
No,
unless you really, it's this component came from Central Russia.
Yeah.
You might want to think hard about, the sources of your components and what they might represent. And whether or not they, you can assess that they have a process for evaluating their own potential vulnerabilities and they have a mechanism for reporting that. And hopefully they're supporting these tools that are out there, feeding that information in so that they show up on the tooling for vulnerabilities.
What about vulnerabilities that are created by our own junior developers? Our own staff.
Yeah.
I can remember long ago. All right, so don't judge me because I was probably 20 years old. And I was just experimenting. Yeah, it was the dark ages. I was experimenting with file watching, looking at a directory. This is before .NET, right? I think it was Windows 95 or something like that. I can't remember. But anyway, I said to my friend, hey, check this out. put up, this folder, and I'm going to add a file to that folder. And then when I see that file, this application is going to look on a timer and look in that folder for a file, and it's going to run a program, right? And it's be really cool. It's a way we could do sort of remote, program execution. He goes, okay, cool, yeah.
That's
well,
awesome.
The timer was set to like 10 milliseconds. And before I ran the app, I forgot to move the file out of the folder. So guess what? Every 10 milliseconds, another instance of this app would run, and it just went. One fill up the screen. He goes, "What did you do to my machine, dude?"
That's what you call DOSing yourself. Denial service.
That's right.
Indeed.
I learned a valuable lesson that day. Just like a child can learn a lot from a broken plate, a developer can learn a lot from taking down somebody's machine by accident.
Yeah, crushing the machine.
Yeah. Well, anyway, what about our own uneducated staff making simple mistakes?
It's a huge problem. Look, I did computer science at uni, and no one ever mentioned anything about security.
Right. It's an engineering problem.
Yeah, no, exactly. Look, I specialized in software development at uni, and no one ever mentioned anything about it.
Yeah.
And I spent many years happily programming lots of applications, never thinking once about security. So it's a big problem. We need to re-educate the developers. We need to start at uni, of course, where you learn to code, or wherever you learn to code.
Right.
It's just, in my opinion, just another quality aspect, really. But apart from that, if you are beyond that and you're already a developer, there are a lot of nice training tools. The OWASP organization have a lot of good resources, for example.
Yeah. I keep a close watch on OWASP to see if there's any way we can ever get SQL injection out of number one position. I'm going to throw a party the day that moves just to number 2.
It's going to stay.
We get to number 2.
It's going to stay.
I think it is too.
There are also a platform called Secure Code Warrior, which is an online gamified platform which teaches developers how to write more secure code. It explains the problem and teaches them to identify problematic code and teaches them a better way of coding. So that's one way. Another way I found effective is to also just demonstrate to the developer that, hey, this is your code. You're not doing any input validation. Look what I do when I put this SQL statement in your nice little form that you thought someone was going to put their first name in.
Have you ever been demonstrating these techniques like SQL injection in a talk and had people go and leave the room?
I've had people go, definitely, yeah.
Get on their phone.
But not leave the room. But you can see that sort of, okay, now what do I do? Like, is there a tool I can use? Like, Oh, look, we're getting there, and awareness is getting up there, but a lot to do. You mentioned this technique of calling an XE file. Yeah, that still happens.
Sure.
Today, 2018, developers think, well, that's a good idea. That works.
What could go wrong?
Right.
What could go wrong? Exactly right.
Little Bobby Tables is out there, and he's looking for you.
Yeah. Look, so what we do in many large organizations is we deploy static analysis code tools, which finds vulnerabilities, and then we need to explain to the developer, look, here's your problem. This is how you need to fix it. The trouble is, of course, when we have to do this over and over and over again, and they don't learn. So you need to bring it as far left as you possibly can and teach the developer.
Sooner is better. You said, I caught a statement you said there where security is an aspect as opposed to security as a feature.
Yeah, it's a quality aspect in my opinion. Yeah, exactly. So it's a non-functional requirement, which is why it kind of gets forgotten.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not a feature.
Yeah,
it's
you really can't be added later, really. It needs to be...
Oh, no, it needs to be built in. It's the only way. It really is the only way,
It doesn't really work anyway. I also think our tools have not encouraged us.
Yeah, okay.
I just wonder if we couldn't have more of that pit of success effect. Because often I look at the fact that so much .NET code has to be run as admin. Because the developer is always working as admin.
Yeah.
And so it takes security constraints they don't even realize they're doing because they always have high privileges when they're running their code. Because the only time they've ever gone to a domain level account or normal privileges, they had problems.
Yeah, so they were like, that doesn't work.
Straight to admin, I haven't got time to figure this out.
Yeah. This works. Great. Sweet. Let's go.
And now you have all this code that depends on that higher security level.
Yeah, that's a problem, yeah.
Architectural decisions can be fundamentally insecure. The way that your application is designed can fundamentally lead to vulnerabilities if you're not careful. Are there any known pattern or anti-patterns about insecure architecture that you've found over the years?
It is a problem that solutions architects are so unaware and don't understand that they have the power to make it natural to build security in.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I guess all security measures are architecture. I mean, really, if you're talking about how we do authentication, how we do authorization, where those fit in the flow of your system is architectural by design. I guess I'm thinking of storing passwords as clear text rather than hashing them.
Yep.
That kind of thing.
Or just not taking that responsibility on in the first place.
Right. Or just leaving it all to SSL. It's always going to be unencrypted. We'll just send the passwords clear. Yeah.
Who does that?
Who does that?
No.
A corollary to that then is this, perhaps developing in the cloud for the cloud is innately more secure.
Why is that?
Because it's pretty hard to store your own passwords.
Yeah.
Like, you will tend to use one of the platform services that the cloud has that requires better policy and better behavior around identity.
That's true. That's one way of building security just through the sheer architecture that you're forced to adhere to.
Yeah.
When you build to the cloud,
Yeah, that once we start involving these external agencies that kind of insist on doing things right, I'm not saying you wouldn't be able to circumvent it. But again, paying the path of least resistance is a more secure aspect.
I can see an example of that. Like if you have a web server, if you're in a VM, even in the cloud, and you're using IIS, where you put your folders for your web routes matters.
Sure.
Right? And you start embedding them within each other, now you've got a problem.
Sure.
And where you can't do that with an Azure app service.
Yeah, well, and when you think about what's nice when you get to an Azure app service is there is no OS that or care about. So there's a set of patches you don't have to deal with.
Right.
And it has an architecture that they know how to secure that you can't avoid.
And you just add an S to HTTP and you've got at least encryption both ways without a secure provider.
Yeah. I just wish
if you're using the Azure websites.net thing.
I just wish we could do it a nicer way,
Yeah.
I'd like us being end-to-end encrypted. I don't know if you have an opinion on this, Nina. They've conjoined two tasks with SSL/TLS, which is encrypting end-to-end and identity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're two different things.
Oh, yeah. And it's biting us in the behind now, isn't it? Yeah.
It's like, because I think we could do encrypt end-to-end without involving us much at all. So just
absolutely
encrypt as much as you can.
Like it's almost like you have to have privilege in order to encrypt. Because why? Why is that? Why was that ever decided to be bundled together?
Well, Chrome is doing something about it now, isn't it? With its changes to the UI. So,
tell me about that.
It used to be that we're teaching consumers to always look for the green padlock, because that makes you secure, and that makes sure that the site is who you think they are.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, as you said, we commingle those concepts. Yeah, completely.
Well, haven't they just moved away from that now? And
and now,
gray?
Now, they're thought, actually, you know what? It shouldn't be like that. It should be the other way around. It should be, if you get a big fat warning in your face, then you need to worry.
Right.
If you don't, everything's fine, which makes more sense.
So if your certificate has expired, are they not telling you, hey, this is unknown,
Yeah, they've always done that.
They're not.
No, they're still doing it. They're still doing it.
Okay,
yeah, but it's sort of switching the concept around. And instead of you have to actively go and think, oh, is this secure?
Yeah.
It should be in your face if it's not secure.
Right.
Which I think is the right way to go.
Default to security.
Yeah.
Any other tips for developers thinking about how they make their code secure?
Don't trust anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Don't trust anyone.
Don't be naive. Be paranoid.
Yeah.
There are a lot of bored people out there who will just, put weird shit into your forms that you did not intend. Always
Users
remember
are
that.
weird.
Yeah.
Don't trust any kind of data source, like any users or APIs.
Mm-hmm.
Don't trust them. Just verify.
Sanitize
It's very
your
simple.
inputs.
Encode, sanitize, validate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that hard. It really isn't. There are ready-made libraries. Okay. We just talked about insecure libraries, but you can use regular expressions. You can use libraries that sanitize and encode. It's easy to build security, and it really is.
Yeah.
Anytime you're jumping across a security context, check everything.
Yes, exactly. Just think and don't trust. If you do that, if you have the right mindset, you come a long way already. Yeah.
Wow, apparently paranoia is productive and useful.
It's true. Yeah.
Is it actually paranoia, or is it just good sense?
Paranoia is a little extreme, but certainly mistrust.
Mistrust, yes.
Yeah.
Let's call it mistrust, sure. Yeah.
Being cautious.
Yes, exactly. Don't expect that the users will play nice.
Right.
They may not,
Humans behind anonymous IP addresses are inherently evil. When you meet them face to face, not so much.
Yeah. Not the same thing.
No.
Cool.
So what's next for you? What are you doing after NDC?
Going back to work, I suppose. Now I try to educate everyone and all the time. So I give as many talks as I can. So I give talks at user groups and meetups. I will be talking at the OWASP Application Security Day coming up in October.
Yeah.
Nice.
As well in Melbourne. So if anyone else would like me to come and talk, I'm always available to come and tell the world.
And how do we get in touch with you?
LinkedIn, Juliadotter.
Great.
Yeah, on LinkedIn. Yeah, that's me. So hit me up.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for spending this time with you. It was really delightful.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Okay, great. And we'll see you next time on .NET Rocks. .NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net and produced by Plop Studios, a full-service audio, video, and post-production facility located physically in New London, Connecticut, and of course in the cloud. Online at pwop.com. Visit our website at dotnetrocks.com for RSS feeds, downloads, mobile apps, comments, and access to the full archives going back to show number 1, recorded in September 2002. And make sure you check out our sponsors. They keep us in business. Now go write some code. See you next time.
Got a transmitter banned by the FCC. Yes, I'm a